Greetings my friends, welcome to a different video this week. How we're going to prepare our Blood Angels for 10th edition. At the end of this video, I've got something very special to talk about. So, hopefully you'll enjoy this one. Let's dive on in. So how are we going to prepare for 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000? If you've been living on a rock, 10th edition is coming this summer. They didn't give an exact date, but right now we're thinking June. I'll update you as soon as I know differently. And what are we going to get? Well, let's start by saying that there is new Terminator kit, and these are not, I repeat, these are not Primaris Terminators. These are Firstborn Terminators, but scaled up to be basically equivalent size that Terminator should be compared to a Primaris Marine. So I guess like an eighth taller than a Primaris Marine, a bit stronger. And we saw a pretty cool trailer. If you haven't seen the trailer, you can check it out on the Warhammer community website. But the one thing that I did want to say is, I guess if we're getting new Terminators, it could mean the end of our Blood Angels Terminator Assault Squad, which I would upset some people. It probably upset me a little bit as well. I asked around in our community what people think they will do, and they think that we may get like a Terminator upgrade sprue, similar to how we get a Primaris Blood Angels upgrade sprue. So I guess if you want to get yourself like the custom Blood Angel shield or the banners or the shoulder pads, note that I don't think the new shoulder pads will be compatible with the old ones or vice versa, right? Like these older Terminators, I don't think their shoulder pads look big enough to be compatible with the new ones, unlike how old Firstborn Marine shoulder pads are compatible with Primaris. So that's an interesting thing to note. But there's a good chance this kit might go away with the release of 10th edition. I don't know for sure, but it's just something to be aware of. Anyway, new Terminators that are not Primaris, and in some ways does that let the Firstborn exist into the new edition? Let's hope so. Let me tell you what I think we've seen, and then what I think we're going to get. So, like I said, if you are not clued up, this is what you're getting in the new edition. There's going to be a new box of Marines, including the new Terminators. I put another one here. And it's also going to be Marines against Tyranids. High Fleet Leviathan was not defeated on Baal. That was but a tendril. And they are back with a vengeance, and the Tyranids are now the biggest threat to the Imperium. And in the trailer, they basically said that, you know, they keep telling the people back on the homeworld that everything is fine, but we're actually getting our butts kicked by the Tyranids. So, what else have they said about the game? They've said the game is going to be simpler and more streamlined, but it's simple and more streamlined, but not simpler. No? But not simple, that's it. There shouldn't be an R here. So the game will be simpler, the rules will be streamlined. They never actually said if it's going to make games quicker. They said that it's going to take less time searching for rules, which arguably will make some games quicker, but at tournament play most people aren't searching for rules, so I don't know. My hope is that maybe they take a half an hour off the length of a game, so if you're playing like 3 games in a day, it's not quite as mentally draining. But they've tried to emphasize that the rules are not simple, they're just simpler. That's fine. They've said that all the rules you will need now are on the model's data sheets, including stuff like psychic powers, because there's no psychic phase. And then they also said that they're now able to balance basically like your hit roll into a weapon. So rather than like previously a Thunderhammer maybe giving -1 to hit, you will just have a 4-up to hit when you use the Thunderhammer, and that will be on the data sheet. There's new data sheets as well on Warhammer Community, but we haven't seen anything for Space Marines yet. So that's what's changing. And for the most part, I like all these changes. There's nothing that I dislike. Maybe the simpler thing will be questionable, but if we know Games Workshop, they always try and make things simpler. Over time, codexes come out, new rules come out. It does get more complicated very, very quickly. This is a very in-depth game. So I think if they've scaled back some of it, that will be good. They also mentioned that AP is going down a bit, and I think AP has been out of control this edition. As a Marine player, where sometimes you're running no invulnerable saves in your army, and you're fighting an army where their whole army, like literally their whole army, is -4 AP, Bloody Rose Sisters of Battle, I'm calling you out, is the worst experience you can ever get. Like, you just basically go through the game and you don't roll any saving throws, and it's terrible. So it sounds like maybe they are aware that that is a thing in certain matchups, and they're going to address it. So AP across the board is going to be drastically lower. They haven't really said much more than that. And I guess we'll see. All right. What else do we know? It sounds like most armies will potentially have more viable builds and less redundant units, and AP has been drastically reduced across the board. So more viable builds just means that there might not be only a singular way to play, in that it'll be easier for them to change an individual data sheet or a weapon or something if it's making those things become like auto includes. For example, there was a time in 9th edition where as Blood Angels you should have just run 3 Death Company and 3 Sanguinary Guard, and if you ran anything else you were running a suboptimal list, and in some ways certain people you could get hassle from some players. You know, like I remember getting told that if I run Dreadnoughts, am I even a Blood Angel player? Well, yeah, of course I'm a Blood Angel player. Blood Angels have had Dreadnoughts for like 20 years, but because I'm not running the super optimal build, then it's not fitting to the rhetoric. So I think this is a great thing. Hopefully it means that there'll be more viable builds, there'll be less redundant units. I'm looking at you, suppressors, reavers. I could go on, there's a lot of redundant units. And then all armor. Tanks, dreadnoughts potentially are going to have toughness values greater than 10, which could really bring armor back into the meta. I said for a while, like, they needed to do something. They needed to bring armor back into the meta because it just wasn't there. Armor without invulnerable saves can just get punched through. For example, the key thing that they highlighted was they were saying, like, your Inceptors with plasma guns won't typically be wounding armor on 4s and 3s now, they'll be wounding armor on 5s, which means you will need to have some anti-tank in your list, because if you run into a list with a ton of toughness 11 enemies, that's going to be a real problem. And I actually just recently fought against Guard, and they have that new Rogel Darn toughness 9 tank. And when you run into a toughness 9 tank and you realise that most of your shit is wounding on 5s, you're like, okay, how am I bringing down like a 17 wound tank with a 5 up invuln and a 5 up feel no pain if I'm only wounding on 5s? There's a problem for you. So I like the sound of this. I've always been an advocate of play a balanced list. Anyone that knows me will know that I very rarely go to a tournament as a one-trick pony. I'll always include some shooting. I'll always include a bit of everything. So for me, this kind of returns 40k to its roots, I think, if armor is definitely viable, and I'm excited. I'm very excited, and I'm gonna have a lot more to talk about in this video. So your army, your core rules, your traits, your stratagems, they said that they're going to exist on 2 sheets of paper, or they said 2 sheets. I don't know, maybe these sheets are like A1 pieces of paper and they fill the whole board. I don't know, what they didn't exactly say, but the idea is that you'll have like a list of rules, traits, stratagems that are very condensed and very, very beneficial, right? You won't have any stratagems that you're never going to play. I mean, there's so many in the rule book that never get played. For example, like I'm not going to go into it. But yes, so there's a load that don't get any play. So they're basically going to cut all those, keep meaningful stratagems, same with warlord traits and relics, right? There's a bunch that don't get any play. So they're going to condense all that down to the meaningful ones. They're going to try and put all your rules on just a few pages of paper, like I guess your army rules. And they said, like, if you changed army, for example, if you were a Space Marine player and you were playing Space Marines, or you're playing like Blood Angels and you wanted to change, you would just swap out those 2 sheets. So if you wanted to suddenly be, I don't know, Flesh Tearers, don't know if that's actually true because they never actually said how successors work, but assuming that Flesh Tearers are a different chapter with different strats, etc., because they're kind of a different chapter in this core Space Marine book at the moment, right? They do share a lot with the Blood Angels Codex, but assuming that the Flesh Tearers are something different, then potentially it would just be like, hey, discard those 2 Blood Angel sheets, pick up your 2 Flesh Tearers sheets, and now you're playing a completely different army that works a little bit different stratagems. It sounds positive, and it also sounds like building a list. They definitely try to focus on that. They try to say building a list is a lot easier. And I remember when I came back from like a 10-year break in Warhammer, and I think a lot of people are always coming back, right? We always see growth in this channel every year, and people are always coming back saying, hey, I didn't play the game for 15 years. And it is a big hurdle to learn, like the new detachments. Hey, I've got these units, can I bring them? Oh no, because there's too many elites or whatever. So they're going to try and make it that it's much easier to build your detachments. And they also said universal special rules will return. For example, twin linked weapons, feel no pains, deep strike. These things have been called those names throughout the edition. So they're just going to try and unify that. So I imagine we're going to get like another 2 sheets that's like all your universal special rules, all your army rules, and then your data sheet. So if you go to a tournament with 8 different units, for example, you will just need 8 cards. And worst case, you're flipping through 8 cards. You could probably do that super quickly, as opposed to what it is now, where you're flicking through the codex, and the codex doesn't arrange them by, it doesn't arrange them by type. You know, like fast attacker together, heavy supporter together, but they're not alphabetically within each category. So it's like pages, and you know, hey, I think I have that one stratagem that lets me do this thing, and you can not find it. Maybe it's not in the Blood Angels book, it's in the Space Marine book, blah 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 blah. So they're trying to get rid of all that. So how that plays out, I'm not sure. How it sounds from the way they're portraying it has me more excited about 10th edition than I was about 9th edition, honestly. And that's why I've kind of made this video, because I'm trying to think, like, how do we need to prepare for 10th edition? Because I'm excited about all these changes, and I think in terms of the game balance, I think that the game balance is potentially going to be better than it's been for years, potentially. They're going back to indexes, so everybody will get the rules, and they also said that you're all going to get your rules for free, which is great. So I think what we have to do as a community is we need to find all our old chapter approved books that are redundant and pool them with one person in your group or local friendly local gaming store, whatever you want to do, and get them recycled, because they are completely garbage now. Maybe keep one if you ever want to play 9th edition again. Maybe keep Arcs of Omen because it was the most flexible or the most crazy season. But there's so many. I was going to look out mine. They're bringing all these rules back for free. This sounds super positive. I don't mind buying new books for a season, don't get me wrong. What upset me was that every book had the same 40 pages of rules, and I said that on one of my live streams. I was like, this is a huge waste of paper, and I don't like it. So hopefully, if Universal Special Rules are something we can download and print, or even buy once, I'm cool with that. Please recycle your old books. I care so passionately about the planet and the future of the planet for all of humanity. I know we've all got different opinions on that, but if you can, recycle your old chapter approved books, recycle your old munition point books. I guess they've been deprecated for a while, but I definitely have some. I need to recycle mine. Do it. Don't just leave them in a cupboard somewhere. Recycle them. Do that for me. And in some places, Games Workshop are actually recycling sprues now. I've lost count of the amount of sprues I've put in the bin. So if you have old sprues and your local Games Workshop is recycling, do that as well. The planet is important. We should help out when we can. Right, what are we going to get in the 10th edition box? This is everything I think we saw in the trailer, right? We saw Gravis Apothecary. He died pretty fast against the Tyranids, but I guess Gravis will be better now, hopefully, because the AP isn't so prevalent. We saw a Terminator Captain. We saw a Terminator Librarian. We also saw, we also saw the Terminator Squad with bolters and power fists. I did look back, and one of them obviously had the power sword. I think the Terminator Captain looked like he had a mastercrafted power sword. I should probably put that down there. We also saw a squad of, I think they were like a Sternguard squad. They were basically a squad of guys with, I saw a Combi Melta, a Combi Flamer, and I don't think I saw it, but someone said we saw a Combi Plasma. So I think this is a squad of Primaris veterans. Basically, they're Sternguard veterans. It would make sense. This book's all about like this battle box, this starter edition is going to be all about First Company. So it's like a Primaris veteran squad with combi weapons. And that'll be interesting. I think it'll be cool. I imagine they're probably going to take up an elite slot. But I don't think they would make a new kit for Sternguard. But who knows? Primaris Veterans, I think, is the fifth thing we're getting. And then the final thing is we saw, basically, I've called it a Primaris Dreadnought. That's not its name. It's basically the Redemptor Dreadnought shell. And it would have, like, twin las cannon and the missile launcher of old. The twin las cannon, it sounds like twin-linked rules are back. So that might, or some variant of twin-linked rules. So basically it's a twin las cannon. But potentially it's twin-linked, which might let you, like, re-roll wounds or something. I don't exactly know. And then the missile launcher, on the firstborn, like the chicken dreadnought, or the box dreadnought as some people call it, it's a cyclone missile launcher. I can't imagine they're just going to have taken over the cyclone missile launcher. Maybe it's a super cyclone missile, like super crack missiles. I can't imagine it's just the same profile. The cyclone missile launcher honestly kind of sucks for 25 points. But yeah, so I think in your starter box, this is what you're going to get. And I said on my stream the other night, if you have a friend that plays Tyranids, talk to them right the... better not swear too much today. Right the F now, because historically, if we go back when they did Indomitus, and you got this many units, you know, like, so I guess 100 points, 100 points, 100 points, 200 points, let's say 200 points again, and then like, 200 points. So this is about 900 points, depending on war gear, depending on where they land, depending on how points actually work in 10th edition. This is about the best part of 1,000 points in this box. There might also be a model that I missed, or there might also be like another character. If there was one more character that we missed from the trailer, then this is 1,000 points. So speak to your friend that has Tyranids right now. If they're buying the box and you're buying the box, agree to do a swap, because then you'll get 2,000 points for the cost of the box if you trade your Tyranids for the more Marines. And this is probably that'll probably be the cheapest way since Indomitus to get 2,000 points, right? Because this box is probably going to retail, I would reckon, the Augustus box retailed at like 120, so maybe slightly more, or because it's a starter box for a new edition, it might be similar. So I reckon somewhere like between 120, 150 UK pounds, and then maybe like 150 to 200 USD. So if you can get 2,000 points for 150 bucks, remember in the UK and sometimes in the US now, there's resellers that are doing 10 or 15% discounts. So if you can get almost 2,000 points for like 120 pounds, if you're willing to trade away your Tyranids and the rulebook, I imagine they're still doing a hardback rulebook, but maybe there'll be more lore in there or less rules. If you can get that for like, you know, somewhere in the region of 150, that's a great deal. That'll add to your pile of shame. So I'd speak to your Tyranids friends right this minute. What do you need to do next then? Assuming you're going to buy that and you're ready to buy that, start saving now. You've got like 2 months. I do think that, and remember the thing about Indomitus as well was Indomitus sold out super quick, and then they did the made to order. And if you were like me and you didn't get up early enough in the morning or didn't order it, then you got stuck with a made to order that took 12. They said it was going to take 12 weeks. It actually took me almost 14 weeks to get it. So you need to be ready to buy the new starter edition on day 1. I think 10th edition is going to be the most popular edition of 40k yet. So yeah, I think you need to be ready to pre-order it the morning it goes live. Otherwise, you could be in for a bit of a wait. So what am I doing next? I'm going to assess my current army. With the transition into 10th, I do feel a ton of units that were previously in a bad state, like in terms of competitive play, potentially will now get viable. This will be the biggest change we've had since a bunch of these units released. Like, if you think the Primaris first came out in 8th and 9th, some of them have been garbage the whole time. Primaris Reavers, I'm looking at you. Now would be the time for them to say, like, you know, nobody's run Reavers, we haven't sold any Reavers, or, I mean, I guess they've sold some, but they are garbage. Which is really sad because they've got the coolest helmets in the whole of the Imperium, basically. But anyway, I think this is their best chance to get some balance into some of these bad units. So I think a bunch of older units could get some new life bred into them. And I think it's important to note that no one really has any information yet. But this is my take on it and what I'm going to be prioritizing and hobbying on over the coming months. Towards the end of this edition, I might actually do a few less live battle reports or a few less army shows. Just do a few extra painting streams, because I'll be trying to get as wide an array of units available, fully painted, ready to go on the day that 10th launches. Because ultimately, the day the 10th launches, you should just be able to download the rules from the website and play. Like they said, it's going to be that simple. You're not going to have to worry about is your box going to arrive on time, figuring out complex detachments. They've said all that. It's going to be really simple. So I am bound to have missed a few units, but I'm going to tell you some of the things I think are going to be core to getting ready for 10th edition. But before I do that, remember that I am John, the Blood Angels Commander, and every week on YouTube we're doing videos. Completely, well, I mean, we just focus on Blood Angels here on this channel. We're building a giant community. We've got Discord, we've got Facebook. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking it. Become a subscriber, or even better, become a channel member. And for as little as a price of a cup of coffee every month, you can really help me out and support what I do. there's a link to a big join button in the video description. I appreciate everybody that's joined so far. And also consider sharing this. If you've got a Blood Angels friend, or even a Space Marine friend, or someone who's wanting to get into the hobby in 10th edition, hopefully this would be a great video for them. Okay, here's my list of units that I think we need to finish now. I have a bunch of these finished, but I also have a bunch that are not finished. So, Incursors and Infiltrators, we know that they are essentially the best Primaris models that we've had all edition. I think you want to finish them. Maybe Heavy Intercessors, Assault Intercessors can get into that, but these guys are just a mile ahead. In the current rules, they're so far ahead. Aggressors, Blade Guard Veterans, Brutalis Dreadnoughts, Redemptor Dreadnoughts, Reavers, Terminators because they're just getting new kits, and Tactical Warsuits. There's a bunch of models here, and a bunch of them are Primaris that have been in or thereabouts, but they've always like had a small weakness. Like the Redemptor has almost been competitive, but it's been held back by now, like no invulnerable save. Aggressors, you know, they were good, and then they got sort of reduced to like having essentially no save into a lot of nasty metas, so they became kind of worthless. They've come back a little bit in Arts of Omen, but I think all these elite choices, bear in mind that there's going to be forcing you, well maybe not forcing you, but they're going to be saying that if you build a balanced list, you're going to do better. Then I think Redemptors and the Brutalis balance the list, Blade Guard bring durability, Aggressors bring anti-chaff, Terminators are back, so I mean Terminators are just cool anyway, and then the Tactical Warsuit, forward deploy but never really was able to get its potential utilized. I think all these things are going to be interesting, and if you've got them, I would try and finish them. I also think Storm Speeders and Outriders really didn't perform as we had hoped this edition for Blood Angels. Fast moving Primaris units with chainswords, we thought they would be cool. They're let down by lack of damage, but I have 6 that are like half painted. I think I want to finish them. I think Outriders are going to be in a lot better state. Going on like what Votann got with their bikes all being like OBSEC, I could honestly see Outriders having a high objective controlled value. And I think over the last 3 or 4 balanced data slates now, Storm Speeders and Gladiators have been dropping in points time after time after time. So I think those 2 units will definitely be worth finishing as well. And I think Gladiator Reapers, the biggest problem with them is lack of invulnerable save. If AP is dropping across the board, Reapers put out a lot of shots. Ball Predators might. I feel more hesitation on the Firstborn, and Ball Predators are very old, but if Ball Predators are still in the meta, if they're still there, I think they'll be good. I also think the Desolation Marines and Eradicators were already there or thereabouts. They've been pretty staple in a bunch of lists. I think Desolation Marines and Eradicators will also be much more desirable as a heavy support slot in 10th. HQ wise, we obviously have Mephiston, who is Primaris already, and we have the Chaplain on the bike, who is arguably probably the best Primaris character you can have at the moment in a Blood Angels list. So I think you need to get these guys, get them finished. You know what, there's a category I have everything finished in, can you believe it? And then Hopefuls. I also hope, and bear in mind I know nothing, the Librarian Dreadnought could be a big winner for us. If he comes out with like toughness 11 and AP's down across the board, we might, you know, I've been saying for a little while it's cool to field something monster-like on the battlefield. He could be a monster, bearing in mind what happens with his psychic powers. Maybe Land Raiders. I mean, to a lesser extent, even Repulsors will be a lot better if AP is down and a Repulsor's like toughness 11, right? And then Suppressors. They're kind of the unit that time forgot. They never got their own kit. They had that... I think the only way you can get them is that Vanguard box. I would love to see Suppressors get a bit more viable. They were cool in that they deny Overwatch against infantry. Maybe just let them deny Overwatch against everything. I mean, I'm not going to speculate on what rules they might have. I think the Hopefuls are just that. They are me hoping. But I think everything else in this list has value, will have more value in 10th edition than it has right now. So if any of these are outliers in your list, you know, we've seen people run Outriders, we've seen people run Storm Speeders, we've seen Gladiator Reapers, Ball Predators, Eradicators, Redemptor Dreadnoughts, we've seen all this shit, Blade Guards, Aggressors, all these things that are like close to being good or arguably okay. they might get like a significant boost. So leave me a comment though if you think that there's models that I've missed that are going to be the most. I mean, as a Blood Angels player, it's like I said, you almost sometimes get berated if you don't have 3 squads of Death Company and 3 squads of Sangre Guard. So I'm assuming most people have those. So what are the other options that we're going to need to start being able to mix into our lists to make our 10th edition lists interesting? And I think these are the choices. Okay. For most of 9th edition, you know me. I've run the mix of Blood Angels lists. I've never really conformed to the 3 Death Company, 3 Sangre Guard that tends to be prolific at the highest tables. But what I have shown on the channel, and I guess at events over this time, is that while you build a balanced Blood Angels list, you can do fairly well at events. I finished a number of events 4-1. I got to the top table a number of times, and with a single more win, I would have won a few events. So what I have managed to do is play the army the way I want to play it, and I've had a lot of fun, and I've made friends, and I've won like best sportsmanship at events as well. And I think the new rules are going to take people time to adapt to, but it sounds like there should be a ton more options when building your army list. So I'll be here, as always. The Blood Angels channel will be here week in and week out to help. I will most definitely be running what I think is fun. So if I can do 2 Baal Predators and a Gladiator Reaper, and they're all toughness 11, and they're able to just put out so much DACA, I'm excited to try it, and I'm excited to, you know, with that said, I mean, I'll run 2 Death Company, I'll probably run some Sandguard, I might run some new Terminators, so I'm going to keep my melee threat in there, but I'm going to throw out a ton of Assault Cannons, Heavy Bolters, Tempest Bolters, I guess Stubbers, whatever. But yeah, you know, so I will be here to help you guys adapt to the new rules. I am excited. It sounds like this could be the healthiest the game has ever been in terms of tournament play. And this is an interesting thing someone said to me, is this the first time they've announced the new edition outside the UK? So the tournament scene in America now is very, very popular. So they're trying to make, and I think they said it in their trailer, Warhammer 40,000 is the most balanced, or they said like it's the biggest tabletop army game, and they're trying to make it the most balanced. And I think a balanced game would be more fun for everybody. You guys know already I hate the Goldilocks zone thing that we've got going on the current season, where some armies are just miles ahead and have been miles ahead for like the whole edition, but just like 3 years. You know, you've had some armies that have been above like 55% or around there for like 3 years. It's been crazy. So I am hopeful that things are going to be much better, and yeah, I'll be here anyway to help you guys out. So on last week's podcast episode, if you haven't yet watched my podcast, then I am part of a podcast called The 3 Grots in a Vox. You can just search us on YouTube. Probably if you just search 3 Grots, you'll find us. And we cover all sorts of stuff in a bit more casual way. Blood Angels Commander is very focused on the competitive game. 3 Grots is just about having fun. Having fun in the hobby. We cover everything. And we also cover some other tabletop games. But if you search us, last week, our episode of 3 Grots, we talked about 10th edition, and there was some concern from my fellow hosts that the new edition is catering too heavy to the competitive scene. And there's definitely been a bit of a rhetoric in 10th where they are pushing more heavily, but I think they will 100% continue to support the game with lore, campaign books, and casual modes like boarding actions. I'm going to have some boarding actions on the channel, actually. I just commissioned the boarding action terrain this week, so give the guy 6 to 8 weeks or something. Mike, we love you. Get my terrain to me, and we'll have boarding actions on the channel. So we will do a bit of everything. But I think the Arcs of Omen season, or series of books with the lore, and basically, you know, rules for boarding actions in there, I think that's cool. They also did say you could take your Crusades forward into the new edition, which I guess is also great. So maybe there's a little bit of hesitancy from some people that the new edition will be too focused on the competitive scene. I don't think it'll be focused on the competitive scene. I think it'll be focused on balancing the game, which I think benefits everybody. Yes, we might not have quite the same degree of flexibility, and you know, like I like to run a Chapter Master on a bike with an Infernal Pistol and a Thunderhammer and Armor Indomitus and yada 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 yada. Maybe I won't be able to do quite as much customization, but there is relics and warlord traits in Crusade that aren't in the competitive game, And maybe that's where they need to be. Maybe they need to be in Crusade, and you can still do your Crusade, or you can still have fun, or you can still play with those rules. Let competitive be a little bit more tighter. I don't think this is going to be a bad thing. I really don't. I am excited. And yeah, I've said that. I think it's an exciting time. And the best use of your time, I think, will be to prepare every unit you can for the new edition, whether you think those units are highly competitive or not, or whether you're highly competitive or not. You know, who knows what fun you're going to be able to have. Arcs of Omen, although it's been a bit of a weird season, what it has shown us is you can have a ton of fun in 40k by building interesting and lists that you never had the freedom to before the Arcs of Omen detachment came out. And they've kind of said it's going to be free. There's going to be less restrictions on making complex attachments in the new edition. So I'm very positive about this. I'm very much looking forward to 10th. If anyone from High Level of Games Workshop is watching this and want to send me the rules early, I'm ready. I'll get you a video out. I'll be very positive. You heard it here first. Alright, what's up? Next, Commander Dante's back. So, I mean, what's not to love, right? So, it's funny, another night in my live stream I said, I'm not the biggest lore guy, but I've read all the Blood Angels books. And one guy was like, not the biggest lore guy, has read all the books. Yes, so so while I not maybe be the most avid reader of the lore or the novels, I am very excited to see a new Dante model. I think he looks awesome. I'm really excited to paint him and to get him. Again, Games Workshop, reach out to me. I'm ready. I'm going to take a day off work the day when I get this guy. Because, you know, with my kids, I never have time to do anything. So I'm going to make something up to my wife, probably. Don't link this video to her. I'm going to take the day off and I'm probably going to film it, let's be honest. I'm going to do a battle-ready Dante in a day if I can manage. And he's going to herald in a new era of the Blood Angels. He is reborn. And I think we can only hope for a new Guy Haley book to continue the story. I have really enjoyed the last few Guy Haley Blood Angels books. I've read them all. Like I said, we've read Dante, Devastation of Baal, Darkness in the Blood. I just finished the Astaroth book not too long ago. Spoiler, don't listen for 10 seconds if you don't want to spoiler for the Astaroth book. But the end of the Astaroth book, Astaroth's black armor is completely destroyed. So maybe why would they repair it? Just get him through the Rubicon. No one dies from that anymore, right? Get him through the Rubicon, get him a new set of Primaris armor, and maybe we'll get some more Blood Angels characters reborn into their Primaris incantation. I think it's only a matter of time before we see all the firstborn characters become Primaris. That is the way that it's going. I think that's a good thing. I have a soft spot for the old sculpts, but I also want new ones. I mean, I had Dante for like 30 years, so I'm happy to get a new one. I enjoy painting the new models. The old ones will always have a fun place on my heart and a fun place on my shelf. It also sounds like Dante's in the Arcs of Omen narrative. The 5th book, The Lion, is coming up, and Dante could be squaring up for some epic battles. And maybe in that book we'll see some Primaris Blood Angels with jump packs. I don't know. People keep asking in the channel, do I buy Sangre Guard? Are we getting Primaris ones? My answer is I don't know. We didn't see any Marines with jump packs in the trailer, which honestly was a little bit disappointing. We did see a Blood Angels banner. We didn't see anything else. I don't know. The other rumor has been that they might be removing the Primaris keyword. And if they do remove the Primaris keyword and Sangre Guard are just Sangre Guard, we don't need Primaris versions of them, they just give them good balanced rules, then that's it. That's all they need. I mean, before, if we rewind back like a year, before the season, the Nephilim season that gave us Armor of Contempt, Blood Angels were in a really poor spot. We're getting beaten a lot. Sangre Guard died very, very quickly, especially we're playing armies where like everything is like AP4, right? You're only saving on 6s on Sangre Guard, and I think back then there were 32 points per model, which was overcosted. I think they're probably still overcosted at 30 now. Maybe they only feel more better because they get those free Infernal Pistols. If you still had to pay 35 points for them with an Infernal Pistol, I think they're overcosted. Anyway, I remember saying on this channel that Sangre Guard would feel better with a 1-up save. That's what they need to be competitive. They need a 1-up save, so when you run into one of these -4 armies, you still save on a 5-up. So you have something. I mean, they could have gone the other way and just given them a 5-up invulnerable save. They're wearing Artificer armor anyway, which typically has a 5-up in fun. But anyway, they gave us Armor of Contempt, which essentially, because I remember when it came out, going, oh, they did exactly what I was saying, basically. They gave us a 2-up, but ignore 1 AP, which makes it a 1-up, right? And then in this new season, they took that away and gave us free Infernal Pistols, which I think has been fine. It's played out. I felt like when they took away Armor of Contempt, I was like, oh god, but getting all those free Infernal Pistols has kind of balanced it. I think that maybe if AP is just down across the board, I don't think we need Primaris Sanguinary Guard. I don't really want to have to paint 30 of them. That's my that's my feeling about getting new Sanguinary Guard. I mean, ultimately, I guess I will get 30 of them if I need to get 30 of them. But I think Firstborn Sanguinary Guard are probably fine for the moment. And I was trying to think, have we seen Firstborn squads for many other chapters? You know, like, have we seen Firstborn, I don't know, have we seen Primaris, like, you know, like, is there any Primaris, like, Inceptors for Grey Knights? Well, there's not. Is there any Primaris, I can't think of a Victrix Guard for Ultramarines? No, they're just Victrix Guard, right? So, it makes me think that if they are going to do specific units like that for each individual chapter, there's no telling when it is. So I guess, like, you could, and some people in the community are now just buying like Stormcast Eternals and making like Primaris sized Sanguinary Guard through conversions. That's probably your safest option, honestly, is Kit Bash Primaris sized Sanguinary Guard, but I don't know. I've actually got a few Sanguinary Guard to finish because I never had all my Infernal Pistol guys painted. I'm probably going to try and finish them before this edition. So that's where I stand. And I did buy them not too long ago. That's it. That's it. There's no good answer on this one, okay? And then my conclusion. I do think there's never been a better time to be a fan of Warhammer 40,000 and the Blood Angels. We are an army that has stood the test of time. We stood up to Leviathan, and we will handle whatever 10th edition throws our way. So pick up your hobby knife, your can of spray paint, your paintbrush, and let's get preparing, brothers. Everyone should try and get as many of those units, or other units that you think are going to be back in the limelight, ready. Especially that, once again, we are now led by our glorious reborn leader, the Lord of Angels, the hero of the Red Scar, the bringer of Sanguinius' light, the Lord Regent of Imperial Nihilus, the Master of the Blood Angels, the Herald of Sanguinius, the Shield of Baal, the Chapter Champion, the Great Slayer, the Angel of Death, Commander Dante. I'm going to be so happy to feel this new Primaris Dante. Maybe the days of the old Firstborn Captain on a bike will finally be gone for me, and a new video will be coming on Dante as soon as we see his datasheet. So thank you ever so much for staying to the end of the video. I have been John and you have been awesome. Leave a like before you head, or leave me a comment. I do answer every comment on this channel. I will catch you in the next one, my friends. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.